When We Were Young 2024, all album plays, 57 records from front to back, live in a parking lot, field-ish area. We are reviewing all 57 records that will be played at the festival, and on this episode, we are talking about What to Do When You Are Dead by Armor for Sleep. We could not do this by ourselves. We have brought on our friend Icky. From Face Value Pod and Your Own Music. And
yes, sir.
From just being a Chicago podcaster.
For sure, yo. We actually have a birthday party coming up at the California Clipper. So if you're around, come through. It's me, my co-host Bailey, and Nate. All our birthdays are in May, so we're doing a thing up there. Great performances. Show You Suck, Swam. My boy DJ Sound Architect. I'm gonna perform. And it's gonna be a good ass time, yo.
Yeah. We met you through Face Value because we were both nominated for Best Music Podcast in Chicago Reader. And we both lost, but we both won in our own way.
Yeah, man. Look, man, there wasn't no way we would go with that shit. They be having like NPR budgets and shit.
I want to say, I think that is a little bit hard to deal with. Maybe some things need to be reprioritized at this point.
Lizzie, tell us a bit about this record. Tell us a bit about Armor for Sleep.
This album came out on February 22nd, 2005 via Equal Vision Records. And fun fact, after this, they ended up signing for their third album to a Warner Brothers subsidy. This is their second album. It's a concept album about a protagonist who themselves and then goes into the motions of the afterlife. Vocalist Ben Jorgensen basically said, I was trying to research ways how to write better about this type of concept. So he did a lot of actual background research and read different books and said what are the best ways to do it. From this album, we have two singles. We have obviously Car Underwater and The Truth About Heaven, which isn't technically listed as a single, but it had a music video release. So I'm going to tack it on as that because usually a single will get some type of music video. This sold over 200,000 copies.
Sheesh.
This was 101 on the Billboard 200 charts and number 1 on the Heat Seekers Billboard charts. They also, during this album cycle, they toured with Chiodos, Gatsby's American Dream, Starting Line, Something Corporate, and so many more, which I think is crazy. That's ultimate package.
Yeah. We're going to get into our takes on this record, but before we do, make sure that you're following and subscribed to both the Face Value Podcast and the Emo Social Club here on YouTube. We also are on all the Spotifys, all the Googles, all the stuff. Make sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts, wherever you get your YouTube videos. We are reviewing every record from this festival, so you can always find all the information down in the description. More reviews are out there, and they're coming. More guests are coming.
That's crazy. Y'all going to all those bands. There's hella bands playing that shit.
Yeah, it's been a time.
Yeah. Here are my takes on What to Do When You Are Dead by Armor for Sleep. I was first introduced to Armor for Sleep by seeing my friends wearing the hoodie, the well-known Armor for Sleep hoodie with the armor across the front and the wings on the back. Thankfully, to Lizzie, I have one of those now, so thank you for getting me that at a recent show. That was how I first heard of them, and I was like, oh, who's this band? And started listening to them off their first record. And then sort of just knew the singles for a long time. This was the main band I thought of when I thought of emo music, both the aesthetic and the sound and the way that the music was about death and about not necessarily always about a girl broke my heart, but kind of a little bit.
Yeah.
I love this band. This band rules. We just saw them live and I'll see them every time they come to town because I just love this band. They're so much fun. They're so good. They're so talented. So obviously, going into this review, I was going to be a little biased because I really like this band. Yeah, this record is excellent. This record is very good. The first 3 songs on this record are absolute fire. Just kicks off with a strongest 3 songs I've heard of many of the records we've been reviewing. The top 3 on this record are so fire, so good. And Ben's voice is, I think, it's a quintessential emo singer voice, but it's not super nasally. It's not very whiny. It's very melodic. It has a really good sound to it.
And it's got a texture to it.
Yes. Yeah. And I can really gravitate towards more singers like this versus some of the whinier pop punk stuff. So this was definitely one of those bands where I'm in high school and I want to associate and identify with this band, I will say my only critique at all about this record is that towards the end, it starts to get a little less energetic. It starts to get a little bit more slower and longer songs. So obviously listening to this record in full, sometimes you like get to the end and you're like, wait, I'm starting to like lose focus because there's a lot less happening that's like keeping my attention in it. I did listen to some of the songs individually without the context of listening to the full record, and they're fire. They're so good. Like obviously I have no issue with them at all. It's just like in the context of listening to like a full record, sometimes you get to that end and you're like, okay, yeah, I've heard it. I'm good. But the songs themselves stand on their own, and they're so good. My top 3 tracks from What to Do When You Are Dead by Armor for Sleep. My first one I picked is Stay on the Ground.
Fire.
So the start of it, like, it starts a little weird. Like his melody doesn't necessarily match up with what the guitar is doing. And then once the song like really kicks in, you're like, okay, I get it. I hear what this song is now, and it's so good. Yeah. It reminded me, I don't know if either one of you will remember this, but like a lot of like early 2000s movie soundtracks and a lot of early 2000s wrestling soundtracks had a lot of bands that would normally not put out like kind of rager songs, but then they'd have like this sort of like more nu metal or like radio rock sounding song that was like out for like the wrestlers to walk out to. Yeah. And there were a lot of bands that I really liked at that time who ended up being on those sorts of records. And this song really reminded me of that.
Yeah, that's the only one he gets in his little screaming bag.
Yeah, exactly. Walking at Night Alone. This is one of those songs where it has the quiet, loud. Like the chorus is really booming and the verses are a little bit more like reserved. I think this is like that perfect example of what that is. If anybody ever complains about it, I'm like, listen to this song, you'll get it. You'll understand like the passion behind it. The reason like emo music does this so much is for that song. I obviously did not choose the first 3 songs, even though like
I thought you were about to, honestly.
I just wanted to pick other songs because I'm like, it's so obvious. Like, so the third one I picked is I Have Been Right All Along. There are some very clunky lyrics in this song. The one that comes to mind is You Can't Turn Off That You're Dead.
But that's their shit, though. He says that all the time.
I know.
That's like his ad lib.
I was like, that's so clunky and weird. Like, yeah, no shit, man. I would say it in a different way, but I found it was still super catchy and like obviously fits in with the overall theme of the record. I think because this record has so many fire songs and so many songs that kind of have the same vibe and the same feeling behind them, it was hard to pick like a top 3. And obviously I could have just picked the first 3 songs on the record and been like, that's it. We're good. And I don't need to say anything else because they're incredible. My least favorite track off of What to Do When You Are Dead by Armor for Sleep. There are some lyrics on this. This record does have some lyrics that are a little basic. I'd say immature. I don't know if I really want to say immature. It's like high school type stuff. This is why this album, I identified with it so much in high school because it's like, yeah, this is what I'm writing. This is how I'm making music in high school. I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think it's bad to be straightforward and not put a lot of metaphor into the music. I think everything within the context makes a lot of sense. So I don't really have like I hated this song or this song doesn't need to be here. Slower songs, longer songs at the end of A Fraud is like, it gets slow and draggy, but I'm not by any means upset about it. Maybe that one, but no, I would listen to it anytime. I think it's better sometimes out of context. If you're like, I don't want to listen to the full record, but I want to listen to all these good songs, you can split them up and you can listen to the songs on their own too, and they still stand without even the context of the rest of the record.
Yo, it's Saint Ick, and I'm finna give you my thoughts on What to Do When You're Dead by Armor for Sleep. I got up on Armor for Sleep like in high school, what was it, 2005?
Yep.
So I would have been, sophomore. That was when like Seeing Kid Perry was being created. when I was listening to the U's, MCR and shit, like just off of like MTV for real. You know what I'm saying? It was a show going off. I couldn't tell you, but you know how they used to play like a little clip from a video and they was playing Armor for Sleep. And I was like, this kind of fire. I got to go download this. You know what I'm saying? Car Underwater was the video for real. Hopped on Kazaa and shit. Downloaded that shit. And I'm like, damn, like this album is hard. It became my favorite album for real, yo. I got Hard to Know What's Real tatted on my chest. For real. It was like my second tattoo. I was like, I'm getting that Armor for Sleep shit, yo. Yeah, that was one of my favorite albums for real. I've actually only seen him a couple of times, to be honest, yo. I saw him at Warped Tour one time and somebody broke a string, so the set was short. I used to love how that album was a concept album because it was like the first album that wasn't old as hell that my mama and them like listened to and shit. It was a concept album about some shit that like I felt was relevant in my life because I was a heartbroken fucking teenager. You know what I'm saying? He wrote it really cleverly. It makes sense, like what you said, that he was doing some reading before doing that shit, because like it's certain lines in it, like he talking about the weather, shit that's gonna change every day. It's like, yo, the weather bogus up here, yo.
Like you think it's all good up here, but it sucks.
And yeah, yo, like I was relating to that shit. And just like you said, like each song, even if it's not in the concept like loosely, because there's some songs that's like loosely on it, like, but it gives the same vibe and the same feel. Standing alone for each song is its own shit. My top 3 for Armor for Sleep: What to Do When You're Dead, Gotta Go, Awkward Last Words. That's my shit for real. Which one? The Basement Ghost Singing, yo. When he had the little beat machine back then. Back then, that's all you had to do to get me. Like on your band and just put a little beat machine in there. I used to love that shit when I was a kid.
It was like every band would have one where they'd like have the little like Casio or like keyboard beat on it.
That was one of the first songs that I heard. They had the little mini beat machine in there. I was rocking with that. I gotta go. Remember to Feel Real, because I got the lyrics tatted on my chest. It was my second tattoo, and I was like, "Yup." When the script was out, can I do an old? It's got to be off this album.
I mean, it has to be. Usually, it's off of the same album.
Yeah, that's how you know how I fucked with them, because I really went back and listened to their last EP. I had to like download it song for song, go for Kazaa and shit. I was like, I gotta get the other one too, for real. I'm gonna do The More You Talk, The Less I Hear. That one's fire too. But it's really every song, like you said. Every song is fire. My least favorite track from Armor for Sleep: What to Do When You're Dead. My least favorite, I'm gonna have to say, I can't put no shame. I can't put no dirt on none of these tracks, for real. Maybe I can't put no dirt on none of these tracks. I spent too many years. With these tracks. End of a Frog, because it's the last one.
By the time you're getting to like the end of the record, you're like, well, that is my least favorite because the last one I'm hearing.
And I see what they was doing. They trying to tie the whole thing in together. It's a concept album. It's the credits.
Yeah, exactly. It's the ending credits. We say this a lot about records at this time too. Like you put kind of your more experimental thing at the end. There are a lot of bands that did like a review of the whole record at the end. So it's like, let's repeat themes. Let's repeat like lyrics from the rest of the record at the end. And to me, I'm glad now people don't do that so much, that they just sort of have a banger at the end of the record too. There's a lot of records though at that time that I'm just like, yeah, it's fine. Like it's not bad. It's just what you did at the time kind of thing. Like if you lopped it off at the end and the last song was just the one before it, I'm like, yeah, it's fine. It's not, it doesn't make it better or worse, I guess.
But they was all telling stories back then.
Yeah.
They're like, they're like, my creative writing class really did something for me.
Okay, but to be fair.
No, I know, get it, okay?
My creative writing class did help me.
This is my thoughts on What to Do When You Are Dead by Armor for Sleep. So I didn't know who Armor for Sleep was until a couple of years ago when we got hit with like an interview request. This came out when I was a child. I never listened to it. None of my friends ever listened to it. When we got the email, I texted Brian and I said, "Who is this?"
I think I was like freaking out.
I would have been freaking out.
I was like, I'm sorry. Did we just get an interview request for Armor for Sleep? Like, are you kidding me? How hard have I worked?
So I only knew Car Underwater because I would just hear it at like emo nights being played, but I never knew. So this was my first time really sitting down and listening to it. And I had to do a second listen through for it to like kind of hit, I feel. Because I listened to the first 3 and I'm like, okay, these are obviously have to be front loaded singles. That makes sense. And then the rest of it, I was like, okay, I can hear the differences, but it was kind of like background music to me for a bit. So then I said, let me replay it. And then I was like, oh, okay, I kind of get it with some of these now.
I was very scared there.
Yeah,
as you were talking. I was like,
but I ended up liking it a pretty decent amount. With some of the songs, though, I definitely hear a lot of like the Used influence on there for sure. And I hear a lot of like that twinkly math rock emo type of stuff too. Yeah. So that's very apparent. I think this kind of blended a lot of things together. And then like what you said earlier about like texture in his voice, I think that's a great way to describe how he was able to kind of deliver a lot of these songs. But for some things, I was still like, I don't know. So I kept having to like re-listen to some ones that I was still a little bit unsure about. Here are my top 3 songs from What to Do When You Are Dead by Armor for Sleep. So I put Awkward Last Words on here, and I went back and forth between this one, and I think it was the one that was before this on the track list, because this has that more math twinkle emo that kind of stands out to me a little bit more. The vocals are much more raw to me, which I usually like. And this is what song that I was like, this is blending the use and the starting line for me in like a really weird way. But I was like, no, like this really, this kind of puts it all together. The other one was The More You Talk, The Less I Hear. I really liked how catchy the chorus was. And it kind of caught my ear a little bit more because it was in that kind of repetitious, catchy cycle, but it wasn't too repetitive at the same time. I also like the guitar work in the bridge of it. It was like, I was like, oh, this is fun. And then also I put Walking at Night Alone, which I usually don't do slower songs, but this was slow and the ramps back up. And I think it's kind of intricate with the sounds that they put all in together. It's like they take a little bit of the interesting bits from each track on there and they throw it all in, but they don't just throw it in and say, okay, here you go. It actually blends and flows together super well. And I think this is a good way to close out the album because you're like still alone and sad and it's really not good after everything that we have gone through and traversed.
Saying that this is like the used meets the starting line is like so true.
Yeah, I was like, you got it right. I never thought about it like that.
I was literally sitting at my laptop like, this sounds obscure, but I think it's right.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, you nailed that shit.
Yeah.
These are my least favorite tracks from What to Do When You Are
You
Dead.
always say tracks.
Sorry,
it
I
always
can do
scares
track.
me.
My least favorite track, really, that stood out to me that I was like, I just need to skip this entirely was, I'm so sorry, Basement Ghost Singing.
Crazy. That's crazy.
I heard the beginning and I stopped it. And I know that this song that I'm about to reference came out years later, but the first time ever, I only heard this song I'm referencing first over this song was Sweet Disposition by Temper Trap. I hate that song. And the beginning guitar, it's like the same I stopped and I said, I don't like this. I do not like it. And then it would just, because it was so consistent. And I say like, okay, it's gone. Maybe I can get back. No, then it's back. And I said, absolutely not. If I wanted to listen to the Temper Trap, I would just not and actually take that song off of everything on Spotify for me.
That's crazy. That's insane.
Damn.
I also, listen, I like the title because it's a spooky title, so therefore I should like it. No, I was sad about that.
That was our takes. Those were our thoughts on this record. But the last question we have to answer is, should you see Armor for Sleep's What to Do When You Are Dead live in full at When We Were Young Fest? And I'm going to say absolutely. I think Armor for Sleep is such a good band. I think that they put on a great show. Most people will go into this kind of knowing Car Underwater, Remember to Feel Real. They'll know how to go into this record and at least enjoy the first 3 songs. I think that it's worth listening to this record if you've never heard it before and going to enjoy at least the majority of like the first few songs. The band is going to be putting on a really good show. I think it's very good to go see it and enjoy it. Armor for Sleep has been kind of celebrating these records and playing them out. So it's possible they might do a tour on this in 2025, I guess. It'll be 20 years from the release. So maybe see it next year. But don't skip it at When You're Young Fest if you don't have to.
Hell yeah. You should definitely go see Armor for Sleep at When We Were Young and play this album. Because this is like nostalgia, the best kind of nostalgia I could think of if you're trying to feel when you're there. Like go like side graphic t-shirt, like you know what I'm saying? If you really try to feel like those times, yeah, definitely go see that shit.
I've already seen this band play twice, and I will most likely see them play a third time when they open for the Hawthorne Heights tour. I personally will probably skip, but I think anybody who hasn't seen Armor for Sleep play since they have come back, I do encourage you to go and see them because they are really good, especially if you do really like this album. You'll probably have a good time. They have a really good stage presence, and it's just something you don't want to miss. Or, you know, if you're like me and you just found out about them a few years ago, you can be like, oh my God, yeah, I can go check out this band now.
So that was it. Those are our takes on this record. What do you think? Were we right? Were we wrong? Did you listen to this record and like it? Did you listen to this record and like it a lot? Those are the only 2 options. Let us know down in the comments. Let us know by liking the video. And let us know by going over to Face Value Podcast. Go over to Icky's page. Go check out all of Icky's stuff, Icky's music coming out.
Yes, sir. Go ahead and follow me at icky.minaj. Follow the Face Value Podcast, all one word. And yeah, tap in with us.
If you're in Chicago, California Clipper, this video comes out the night before. So go to the show.
You won't be disappointed.
Yeah, show you suck.
Swam,
yeah.
Convertible Ashley, Saint Icky, DJ Sound Architect. Free 99 too. And everybody's off on Mondays. The holiday.
That's true.
Oh my God,
That's
you're
true.
right.
Come out.
Yeah.
Come out.
Well, we'll see you there. We'll see you When We Were Young. Until we do, Armor for Sleep, What to Do When You Are Dead. We'll see you there.